Hi everyone, welcome to a new series called Celebrities You Didn't Know Were Kidnapped. Today we're going to be talking about the not very well-known kidnapping of Jessica Alba. Now, this is not something that Jessica's talked about publicly, but when she was 15 years old, she was kidnapped from set from her first ever show, Flipper. The story goes that Jessica was filming in Miami when she started receiving weird phone calls. She didn't really think much of it because she figured it was just a fan that got her number. The specific details have never been released, but we know that Jessica was taken for 14 hours and found tied up and blindfolded in the trunk of a car. When she was found, she wasn't able to recount a lot of the details to the police, but also she was severely traumatized and it sounds like she was blindfolded for a lot of it. In general, though, this is just kind of a small part of Jessica's dark past. She was raised in a really religious community that completely shamed her for her looks. Like basically being told it was her fault that older men were looking at her because she was just too pretty. This is just the first of a few stories we're gonna tell though, so follow along for more.
Most unusual deaths in human history.
Yuriko Onaja was in the middle of having sex with his sixth wife when his other wives caught him and became jealous. They forced him to do it with each of them and he stopped breathing before he could get to the fifth wife. A 32-year-old man from Florida, Edward Archibald, died from choking on arthropod body parts in a cockroach eating contest. When 25-year-old Salman Mirza met up with his ex-fiancée at a hotel in India, he realized that he didn't have protection. Salman then proceeded to seal up his pee-pee using a strong glue, causing him to die of organ failure. This past Halloween, a Brazilian man was fishing with his two friends when all of a sudden they were attacked by bees. The man attempted to escape by jumping into a nearby lake where he was attacked by piranhas and died. 42-year-old Tony Isles was in a McDonald's drive-thru when he dropped his credit card. He opened his door to retrieve it when his car rolled forward, pinning him between the door and the car, crushing him.
Choose one.
For what?
Just choose one. See if you get it right. 1, 2, 3, 5, or 6.
4.
4? That one's 4.
And that's the one I choose.
Okay.
Most unusual deaths in 2022. Just a few weeks ago, a 32-year-old man named Khalil Kimi was swimming at a pool party in Israel when all of a sudden a sinkhole opened up under the water, causing him to be dragged inside and sucked to his death. On January 5th, a personal trainer named Tom Mansfield died after ingesting an amount of pre-workout equivalent to 200 cups of coffee. The father of two reported that his heart started beating extremely fast and he was foaming at the mouth before he died just minutes later. The following day, on January 6th, a 16-year-old boy named Teddy Balkin was playing a JV hockey game when he fell to the ground and collided with another player. His neck was then slit by the boy's hockey skate and he died later in emergency service.
Imagine you're me scrolling on your For You page in the middle of the night and you see this. Now, this is a doll. Let's get that out of the way first. And this woman married this doll. There you go. There's a picture of them at their wedding. And she has like an entire family of like zombie dolls. But is this not so like unnerving? And also, is that not like a child zombie doll? I understand this is not what my like page normally is about. Like it's usually like crime and like hauntings and stuff like that. But like this is freaking me out.
A police sergeant called this case the most bizarre he's seen in 30 years. This is the bizarre disappearance of the Trump family. The Trump family was a seemingly normal, hardworking family living in Sylvan, Australia. The parents, Mark and Jacoba, and their 3 adult children, Rihanna, Mitchell, and Ella, all worked on the family's berry farm. Until August 29, 2016, when the entire family up and vanished, leaving their cell phones, credit cards, passports, and no warning. The entire family disappeared. After friends noticed, police went to the Trump home to find it in complete disarray. Their financial records were rifled through as if someone was looking for something, and the home was a mess. It looked like they wanted to be untraceable with a cash-only trip. Mitchell, the Trump son, brought his cell phone, but miles into the trip, his family made him throw it out of the car window. They said it could be used to track them. The family drove all day and all night until reaching the city of Bathurst, and for some reason, Mitchell separated from the family at 7 a.m. The remaining 4 family members continued to drive east toward the Jenolan Caves. Once they arrived, Rihanna and Ella separated from their parents, stole a car, drove to the city of Goulburn, and then reported their parents missing. Then, strangely, the sisters split up. Ella returns home and was greeted by police, and Mitchell arrived home the next morning, and the two seemed fine. But Rihanna was found in a truck bed by a driver almost an hour away. He was driving and felt a kick in the back of his truck. He pulled over to find Rihanna in the back in a complete catatonic state. This man called police. She didn't know who she was, where she was, and they took her to a psych ward. Now, just the parents were missing. The two drove towards Melbourne, then separated. They found Jacoba wandering miles away, agitated. She was also taken to the psych ward. Now it's just Mark, and this is where the story takes a creepy turn. One night around 10 p.m., Mark was spotted dangerously tailgating a young couple. The couple was really scared as he was so close to their car they couldn't even see his headlights. The couple pulled over, and Mark pulled up behind them. He got out of the car, started running towards them, randomly stopping in the middle of the road, and just stared at them. He turned and ran into a nearby park and vanished. Nope. Nope. After 6 days, Mark was found wandering down a road and taken in for evaluations. And to this day, no one knows the reason behind this. Police couldn't find any threats against the family, no drug use, no deaths. The family cannot explain it. What do you think happened?
Creepy historical photos that will haunt your nightmares, Part 5. This photo shows a 15-foot great white shark floating in a tank of formaldehyde found in an abandoned Australian wildlife park. This first responder is helping to aid the Australian wildfires that were started at the beginning of 2020. They caused so much damage and destruction that they actually turned the entire Australian sky red. This shows a female patient undergoing treatment in 19th century Germany. They believe that the crucifixion pose would cure her mental illness. This appears to be an ordinary Chinese statue of Buddha. But when scientists placed it into a CT scanner, they found what appeared to be the mummy of a 1,000-year-old Buddha monk. Okay, I don't know about y'all, but 2020 is not the year that we should be messing with mummies and seeing what's inside of them.
Here are some facts that you probably didn't know that one day could save your life. Part 20. If you're ever cooking and the pan catches on fire, do not throw liquid on it. Instead, use the lid to smother the heat and do not remove it for a few minutes. If your pupils don't dilate to the same size, there is a very real chance you have brain damage. A motorcycle helmet is stronger than a skull. Tea bags actually stop bleeding. They contain a chemical called tannic, which naturally clots your blood. If you're in the wilderness and desperately need water, you can take a plastic bag and hold it against the branch of a willow tree, and it will condensate drinkable water into the bag. Never put tools or heavy objects on the back seat or dash of your car. If you get into a crash, you might survive the collision, but these items could be the cause of your death.
Can some cameras pick up on the paranormal? Back in the late 1800s, an inventor named Frank Lumiere claimed that he had invented a camera that could see into a realm that humans could not. And what he saw, people at the time were just not ready for. And before we dive in, if you love spooky stories, you'll love the podcast. To prove it, he had set up a booth at the Chicago World's Fair where he took some of these portraits. The crazy thing about that day was that most of the portraits Frank had taken came out completely normal, but there were a few portraits of young girls that came out severely distorted. Frank was accused of all sorts of things, of being a con man, of being a witch, and then eventually he disappeared in 1908 along with his camera. History largely forgot about Frank and his camera, but recently a historian noticed that all 4 women who were photographed like this that day died before their 25th birthday. It's unclear if the camera had anything to do with it, or if the camera could see something that we just
Born addicted to crack cocaine, little Elisa Izquierdo didn't stand a chance with a mother like hers. Elisa was born in 1989 in Brooklyn, New York to parents Awilda Lopez and Gustavo Izquierdo. Throughout her pregnancy with Elisa, Awilda was abusing crack cocaine, meaning when Elisa was born, she actually had to be weaned off the drugs as she was addicted. Gustavo ended his relationship with Awilda when he realised what she was doing, and he vowed to get custody of Elisa. She actually had 2 children from a previous relationship that she'd lost custody of due to her drug abuse, and they were being raised by family members. When Elisa was born, Gustavo actually managed to win custody, and his world revolved around his daughter. He started taking parenting classes and he enrolled Elisa in a preschool in 1990. Unfortunately, his health started to decline and he could no longer afford the tuition fees, but she was a promising student, and the principal of the school decided to introduce her to one of the patrons of the school. This was Prince Michael of Greece, and he actually offered to pay for Elisa's tuition fees right up until 12th grade. During her first year of preschool, it came to Gustavo's attention that Awilda had actually beaten her addiction, secured permanent accommodation, got married and become pregnant with her 4th child. She'd also regained custody of her 2 older children. When Elisa was just 2, Awilda applied for visitation rights, and she won, meaning that Elisa would go and stay with her unsupervised every other weekend. Shortly after these visits started, Gustavo and also teachers at Elisa's school started to notice bruises. She also began bedwetting and started having regular nightmares. She also told her father at one point that her mother had beaten her and locked her in a closet. Gustavo tried to get Awilda's visitation rights revoked, but it was denied, saying that as long as she didn't beat her daughter, the visitation could continue. In 1993, Gustavo decided to come up with a plan to get Elisa away from her mother permanently. He was from Cuba and still had family there, so he decided to buy tickets for him and Elisa and take her where her mother couldn't hurt her anymore. The tickets were booked for May 26, 1994, but shortly before that, Gustavo started to experience breathing difficulties. He was admitted to hospital and diagnosed with lung cancer. He then sadly died on the exact day he planned to take Elisa to Cuba. On hearing about Gustavo's death, Awilda decided to apply for full custody of her daughter. Due to the previous abuse of Elisa, there were multiple objections to the court from Gustavo's family and also Prince Michael of Greece. Despite that, Awilda was awarded full custody of Elisa.
Breaking news, a jury just reached a verdict in the Letitia Stalk murder trial. On January 27, 2020, Letitia reported her 11-year-old stepson Gannon missing. Gannon's father had been deployed by the National Guard the day prior. Letitia claimed that Gannon left the house to visit a friend down the street, but she couldn't provide names of those friends. Investigators interviewed Letitia several times because she was the last person to see Gannon alive, and each time her story changed drastically. One time she claimed that she was R-worded and that man had abducted Gannon. Another story was that Gannon had crashed his bike and then that man abducted him. Hundreds of volunteers searched for Gannon in Colorado Springs, and 2 weeks after he vanished, particle board with Gannon's blood was found in a rural area nearby. Over the course of a month, Letitia's behavior became even more strange. She obtained a rental car, disconnected her phone, and left the state of Colorado. Investigators then conducted a more thorough search of Gannon's home, and this is a quote from Letitia's arrest warrant. Physical evidence recovered from the residence and inside Gannon's bedroom supports that a violent event occurred in his bedroom, which caused bloodshed, including blood splatter on the walls and enough blood loss to stain the mattress, soak through the carpet pad, and stain the concrete below his bed. Police learned that on the Monday Gannon went missing, he had stayed home from school. Letitia told the school that Gannon was ill. She also lied to her employer so that she could stay home as well. She told her boss that her stepfather had been fatally struck by a car, so she couldn't go into work that day. Letitia also sent her daughter to pick up carpet cleaner, trash bags, and baking soda, which she used to clean up the crime scene. Letitia searched for jobs in other states and apartments in Florida, both before and after Gannon went missing. These are some of her Google searches during that time, which included, "I'm overdoing all the work for my stepkids and their mom doesn't help," and "find me a rich guy who wants me to take care of his kids," as well as "my son burned the carpet, how do I fix it?" She also searched, "One day some people will wish they treated you differently." Based on all this information and more, police believe that Letitia murdered her stepson Gannon and hid his remains hoping they would never be recovered. On March 2nd, 2020, Letitia was arrested in South Carolina. She was charged with murder in the first degree of a child under 12, child abuse resulting in death, tampering with a deceased human body, and tampering with physical evidence. And while she was being transported back to Colorado, she ended up getting out of her restraints and assaulting a deputy. She also apparently tried to grab one of their guns. 2 weeks later, on March 17th, a man was doing a routine bridge inspection in Pensacola, Florida. Below the bridge, he found a heavy suitcase. He opened it and noticed a strong smell and then saw, quote, 2 little feet with football socks. DNA testing confirmed it was the body of 11-year-old Gannon Stout. Gannon had suffered 18 sharp force injuries, 4 blunt force injuries, and 1 bullet wound. Hydrocodone was found in his system. Records show that Letitia rented a van and stayed just 3 miles away from where Gannon's body was found. Letitia has been on trial for the past 5 weeks. She's pleaded not guilty by reason of insanity. Her defense claims that she had a psychotic break and this resulted in Gannon's murder, while prosecutors argued that Letitia's brutal attack stemmed from her hatred of Gannon. After 7 hours of deliberation, a jury found her guilty on all charges.
13-year-old Jamie Kloss was just getting on the school bus in the morning when the roughest-looking 21-year-old I have ever seen, Jake Patterson, who was just on his way to work, happened to catch a glimpse of her as she was getting on the bus and made a final decision in his mind that, quote, "This is the girl that I'm going to take." He had tried driving up to the Kloss home a couple times, but there was some commotion, neighbors, whatever, and he got spooked and drove home, but he decided to try one more time. With a stolen license plate and every light disabled on his vehicle, I mean, we're talking right down to that little light that comes on when you pop the trunk, he slowly coasts into the driveway, but it sets the dog off. Dog starts barking, which wakes up Jamie, who tells her parents. As Patterson walks up to the house, he's completely dressed in black. He's got a ski mask on, wielding a shotgun. Jamie's dad is coming over to the front door to see what the commotion is, and Patterson can just kind of see his silhouette through the window and fires a fatal shot right through the window at the dad. As he's shooting his way through the front door, Jamie's mom is actually able to quickly call 911 and barricade herself and Jamie inside the bathroom, but Patterson quickly is able to just smash his way in there, and he fires another fatal shot at Jamie's mom. This girl had to witness both of her parents go in just the most brutal way possible. This all went down in about a 4-minute window, and as the police are speeding over to the house, they actually pass Patterson, who is able to get away with Jamie locked in the trunk. Cops just had the crime scene to go on, and everything just goes quiet for a little while. No leads, no sign of Jamie, zip. But Jamie was still alive. For 3 months, Jamie was forced to live under Patterson's twin bed, and he tried to develop this companionship-like relationship with her, like they apparently played cards and watched TV, and he basically just instilled it in her that if she ever tried to make a break for it, it'd be bad. He had the bed lined with tote boxes and weights, but that was it. One day, Jake tells Jamie, "Hey, I'm gonna be gone for a couple hours, you know the drill," and everything had gone according to plan up to this point.
911. Hi. I have a young lady at my house right now, and she just says her name is Jamie Kloss. Who's going to come back? Jake Thomas Patterson.
When Jake came home after that couple hours, Jamie was gone. Now at this point, Patterson is just out of his mind, driving around frantically, just trying to track Jamie down, but the cops tracked him down, and the first thing he said was, "I know what this is about."
Hey y'all, today I'm going to talk about a case that feels like a real-life horror movie. Today I'm going to talk about the Bleeding House of Atlanta. In Atlanta, Georgia, there was a couple named Minnie and William Winston. The Winstons was an elderly black couple in Atlanta that lived on 1114 Fountain Drive. Their house was cozy and a nice-sized house. Over time, William's health declined, he was placed on a dialysis machine, and Minnie became his caretaker. The couple, however, lived in the house for over 20 years and they loved their house, but a disturbing event would change their lives forever. One night in September of 1987, Minnie, who was 77 at this time, was taking a bath around 11 o'clock p.m. When Minnie got out the bathtub, she felt something soaking her feet. Now, you're probably thinking, okay, it's water. But honey, when she looked down and realized what was soaking her feet, she freaked out. When Minnie looked down and saw what was soaking her feet, it was blood. Blood began to ooze through the tiles on the floor and began to ooze through the walls. When Minnie discovered this, she woke up her husband, William, who was 79 at this time. They both were confused, scared, and was trying to investigate to see what was the source of the blood. The couple did not find the source of the blood, so Minnie decided to call 911. Paramedics arrived first, and they noticed that the couple did not have any cuts or other injuries on them. The lab technician at the scene, she collected the blood that was oozing through the walls and the floors, and come to find out that the blood tested positive for human, type O. I know, y'all, this shit is crazy. And what's so crazy is that the blood didn't belong to neither Minnie or William because they were both type A. So who blood was it? Just like the couple, the investigators could not find the source of the blood either. The disturbing event spread quickly around Atlanta, and a lot of people suspected that the house was some sort of supernatural, paranormal type shit. Here is a theory of what may have caused the blood. Before the Winstons moved in, it was a black guy named Albert who used to live there. One day in 1950, Albert got into a terrible car accident. A white driver actually T-boned his car, but the white driver never got charged, and when Albert was sent to the hospital to get treated for his injuries, they still sent him home with internal bleeding. What makes this so interesting is that the same night that the blood was oozing from the walls and the tiles on the floor was the anniversary of Albert's car accident. Minnie was in doubt for many years that her house was a part of the supernatural. Even after the event, the couple still lived in the house. A few years after the incident, William died. In 2015, Minnie died at the age of 104. I'll be back to do more videos for you guys.